The night was quiet. Only the sound of crickets and the soft wind moving through the trees filled the air. A young man named Daniel walked along the edge of the forest. He often came here when he wanted to think. Life in the small town was simple, sometimes too simple, and the forest gave him peace. But tonight something felt strange. The silence was too deep, like the forest was holding its breath. Daniel stopped. His eyes narrowed. Something was moving between the trees. At first he thought it was just an animal, but then he saw her. A small figure stepped into the moonlight. It was a girl, but she was not like any girl Daniel had ever seen. Her skin was pale, almost glowing faintly, as if moonlight lived under her skin. Her eyes were large and bright, shining like silver glass. Her clothes were torn, strange, and covered in dirt. She looked weak, scared, and very hungry. Daniel's first thought was to run. Something deep inside told him this girl was not human, she was something else. But she looked so lost, so helpless, that his fear slowly turned into pity. The girl looked at him, her body trembling. She tried to speak, but only strange sounds came out at first. Then, in broken English, she whispered, one word, food. Daniel froze, his heart pounded. She could talk. She needed help. He looked around, unsure what to do. But then, slowly, he reached into his backpack and pulled out the sandwich he had packed earlier. The girl's eyes locked on the food. She stumbled forward, weak and desperate. Daniel held the sandwich out carefully, his hand shaking. She snatched it with surprising speed, as if she had been starving for days. But when she tried to eat, she didn't even know how. She bit the bread the wrong way, spilled half of it, and coughed as crumbs stuck in her throat. Daniel quickly stepped closer, gently showing her how to take smaller bites. She copied him clumsily, her silver eyes never leaving his face. He could feel it. She trusted him. Minutes passed. The sandwich was gone. The girl licked the crumbs from her hands like a wild animal. Then she sat on the ground, her body shaking less now, her breath slower. Daniel crouched down, still keeping a little distance. "Who are you?" he asked softly. The girl tilted her head like she was trying to understand. Her lips moved, forming broken words. "Name, Lyra." "Lyra," Daniel repeated. The name felt strange in his mouth. "Where are you from?" She hesitated. Her eyes shifted toward the sky. High above, the stars shone brightly, cold and distant. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "Far." Daniel followed her gaze. His stomach tightened. He had thought it before, but now he was sure. This girl was not from Earth. Before he could say more, a deep sound rolled through the night. The ground trembled slightly under his feet. Daniel's head snapped toward the horizon. Far away over the trees, he saw it, a glowing light moving slowly in the sky. It was no plane. It was silent, massive, and it shone with a strange blue color. Lyra's eyes widened in fear. She grabbed Daniel's arm with surprising strength. Her fingers were ice cold. "Coming," she said. Daniel's blood ran cold. "Who's coming?" "Mother," Lyra whispered. Her voice was soft but filled with dread. The light in the sky grew brighter, closer. The forest around them seemed to shrink under the glow. Daniel's heart pounded. He wanted to run, but Lyra held his arm tightly. Her face was pale, her eyes full of both hope and terror. Suddenly the light flashed and the trees lit up like fire. Birds exploded from the branches, crying in panic. The air smelled sharp, metallic, like lightning after a storm. Daniel shielded his eyes, but he couldn't look away. Something was descending. Lyra pressed closer to him, whispering quickly in a language he couldn't understand. Her voice was shaking, her body trembling against his arm. The light dimmed slightly, enough for him to see. A huge shadow moved above the tree line. It was a ship, nothing like Earth technology. Its surface glowed with blue lines, pulsing like veins. It moved slowly, silently, yet the power in its presence pressed down on Daniel's chest, making it hard to breathe. He knew, in that moment, his life had just changed forever. The girl looked up at him, silver eyes wide. "Do not let them take me," she begged in broken English. Daniel's throat went dry. He could barely speak. "Why?" Her answer was only one word, whispered like a curse. "Husband." And then the forest shook again as the ship touched the ground. The night sky cracked open with light. Daniel stood frozen, his hand still caught in Lyra's cold grip. The forest glowed like day as the giant ship descended behind the trees. Its size was beyond anything human eyes had seen before. The air vibrated with a deep hum, making his bones ache. Leaves shook loose and rained down around them. Daniel's instincts screamed, "Run!" But his legs refused to move. His breath came short, shallow. Lyra's silver eyes reflected the blue glow of the ship. She was whispering again, but now her words were sharp and desperate in a language Daniel couldn't understand. It was as if she was praying, or begging. Then the sound came, not thunder, not wind, but a roar of engines that were too quiet, too smooth, too alien. The ground shook beneath his boots as the ship lowered, settling in a nearby clearing. Branches snapped like matchsticks. Birds vanished into the night. Daniel shielded his eyes as the ship's side opened. A wide ramp slid down, glowing with light. For one moment, everything was still. Then shadows moved. Figures. They were tall, taller than any man, armored in strange silver suits that shimmered like liquid metal. Their helmets had sharp curves, glowing symbols across them. Each carried a long weapon that looked both ancient and futuristic, like spears fused with lightning. Soldiers. Daniel's chest tightened. Every instinct told him he was prey. But then, they parted. From the middle of the formation, another figure stepped forward. Taller, stronger, carrying no weapon at all. The soldiers bowed their heads slightly as she passed. Daniel knew at once. This was no soldier. This was the mother. Her armor was black, lined with burning blue veins of energy. Her face was uncovered, pale like Lyra's but sharper, colder. Her silver eyes cut across the clearing, glowing like blades in the night. Her hair was dark, braided with metallic threads that shone under the ship's lights. She looked both beautiful and terrifying, like a queen from some other world. Her gaze fell on Daniel. He felt it like ice on his skin. His stomach clenched. He couldn't move, couldn't even speak. The soldiers moved first. They spread out, scanning the forest, their weapons humming softly. But the mother walked straight toward Daniel and Lyra. Lyra dropped to her knees, pressing her forehead to the dirt. She trembled like a child before fire. The mother's voice was low and smooth, but it carried power. It was not English, but Daniel could feel the weight of every sound. She spoke to Lyra first, her words sharp and heavy. Lyra answered weakly, her voice small. Then the mother's eyes returned to Daniel. For a long, silent moment she studied him. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Finally, she spoke a single word. The tone made Daniel flinch. He didn't understand it, but he knew. It was about him. Lyra looked up at him, fear and hope fighting in her eyes. She whispered in broken English. She asked, "Who feed me?" Daniel swallowed hard. His mouth was dry. He managed a nod. I gave her food." The mother tilted her head, her silver eyes narrowing. She stepped closer, towering above him. Her presence was overwhelming, like standing before a storm. Slowly, she reached out her hand, not to strike, but to touch his chest with the tips of her fingers. The cold burned through his shirt. Her lips curled into something between a smile and a command. She spoke again, louder this time. Lyra's voice shook as she translated. She say, "Now you family." Daniel blinked. His stomach dropped. "What?" She say, "You must be husband." The words hit him harder than the ship's engines. Husband. He almost laughed in shock, but the mother's piercing stare silenced him. This wasn't a joke. Daniel shook his head quickly. No, that's insane. Lyra looked down, ashamed. Law, she whispered. Our law. The mother's soldiers shifted, their weapons glowing faintly. Daniel realized with horror that refusal was not an option. The mother stepped back slightly, lifting her head high. Her voice rang out across the clearing, echoing in the night. The soldiers pounded their weapons against the ground in response, the sound vibrating through Daniel's chest. It felt like a ritual. Lyra trembled beside him. She say, "You save me. You give food. By law, you bond to me. You are chosen." Daniel's mind spun. He wanted to scream, to run, but he couldn't. The soldiers surrounded him. The mother's silver eyes burned into his soul. And Lyra, she looked at him with something like fear, but also relief. He didn't understand their culture, their rules, their laws. But one thing was clear. By feeding this lost alien girl, he had stepped into something far bigger than himself. The mother turned, her black armor catching the glow of the ship. She raised her hand and the soldiers pulled back, making space. Then she looked at him one last time, her eyes cold and final. Lyra whispered, voice shaking. She say, "If you break bond, Earth break too." Daniel's blood turned to ice. He opened his mouth to protest, but before he could, the soldiers closed in around them, and together they began to march toward the waiting ship. The night behind them faded, swallowed by blue light. The air inside the alien ship was heavy. Daniel's lungs struggled as he stepped across the glowing floor. The walls hummed with strange energy, alive with moving lights that pulsed like veins. The sound of the soldiers' footsteps echoed around, him, steady and cold. Behind him, Lyra followed quietly, her head low. Daniel's heart pounded. He couldn't believe it. A single act of kindness, feeding a hungry stranger, had pulled him into something he didn't understand. Now he was inside a ship that should not exist, walking beside beings who looked at him like he was already theirs. The soldiers led him into a large chamber. The ceiling stretched high above, curved and glowing like the inside of a giant crystal. Strange symbols floated in the air, shifting like smoke. In the center of the room stood the alien mother. Her armor glowed faintly as she turned to face him. Her soldiers bowed. Daniel felt his legs weaken, but he forced himself to stand. He couldn't show fear, even though fear was all he had left. The mother spoke, her voice smooth and cold, carrying power even without translation. Lyra stepped forward, trembling, to turn the words into broken English. She say, "You must understand, Bond. You save me. You give life. By law, you now my mate." The word hit Daniel like a stone. Mate, husband, family. He shook his head hard. No, this isn't right. I didn't agree to this." Lyra looked down, her voice small. "No agree. No choice. Our law. Stronger than choice." The soldiers stirred at his raised voice, their weapons glowing faintly as if warning him. Daniel swallowed his anger. One wrong move, and they might kill him where he stood. The mother stepped closer. Her silver eyes locked on his, and for a moment Daniel felt like she was looking into his soul. Her hand reached out, brushing against his chest again. Cold energy burned through his skin like she was marking him. Her lips curved in a sharp smile as she spoke another long command. Lyra translated softly. She say, "Human man, weak. But you brave. You protect me. So, you chosen. You no refuse." Daniel's fists tightened. He wanted to scream at her, to tell her he didn't want this, that he never asked for any of it. But the weight of her gaze crushed him. It was like standing before a storm that could tear him apart with a single breath. He turned to Lyra, desperate. "Do you even want this?" For the first time, Lyra lifted her eyes to him. There was fear there, but also something else. Something like hope. Law. Say yes. But heart. She touched her chest softly. Heart. Safe with you. Daniel froze. Her words were clumsy, broken, but the meaning was clear. She trusted him. She believed in him. And that terrified him even more. The mother raised her hand, and the floor lit up with symbols. They spread in a circle around Daniel and Lyra, glowing brighter and brighter. It looked like some kind of ritual. The soldiers banged their weapons against the ground, the sound echoing like thunder. Daniel's body shook. He was standing in the middle of a marriage he didn't agree to, surrounded by aliens who treated it like law. The mother's voice rang out, sharp and final. Lyra translated only one word: bond. The light rose higher, wrapping around Daniel and Lyra like a cage. He felt heat press into his skin, into his blood, like invisible chains were closing on him. His mind screamed to resist, but his body couldn't move. And then, just as the ritual burned brightest, alarms exploded through the ship. Red light flashed across the chamber. The soldiers turned quickly, weapons glowing brighter. The mother's silver eyes narrowed, her sharp face twisting in anger. The ship shook. A heavy sound thundered outside. Lyra gasped, "Enemy!" Daniel's heart jumped. Enemy? That meant there were more aliens, dangerous ones, and if they were attacking now, this ship was not safe. The mother barked orders in her sharp language. The soldiers ran, their armor glowing as they moved. The floor shook again, harder this time. Somewhere deep in the ship, metal groaned like it was being torn apart. Daniel looked at Lyra, his panic rising. "What's happening?" Her face was pale, her silver eyes wide with fear. "Other clan. They want us dead." The mother stepped forward, her cold hand grabbing Daniel's arm with crushing strength. She looked into his eyes, her voice low and burning. Lyra translated, her voice breaking. She say, "If you run, earth burn. If you stay, maybe live. Choose now." Daniel's breath caught in his throat. He could feel the weight of the choice pressing on him. Stay with them, risk everything, be pulled deeper into this alien bond, or run, and bring doom to his entire world. The ship shook again. Outside, a flash of fire lit up the sky. Daniel clenched his fists. He had no idea what to do. But one thing was certain. His simple life was gone forever, and the real war was only beginning. The ship shook again, harder this time. Daniel nearly fell as the glowing floor trembled beneath his boots. Sparks rained down from the ceiling. Somewhere, in the distance, metal screeched like a giant beast in pain. The alien mother barked sharp orders. Her voice was like a blade cutting through the chaos. Soldiers rushed past, their silver armor flashing red in the warning lights. They moved with perfect discipline, but Daniel could see it. The fear in their quick steps, the tension in their stiff movements. Lyra grabbed his arm, her cold fingers pressing hard. "Enemy close," she whispered, her silver eyes wide. "They hunt us." "Hunt?" Daniel's voice cracked. "Why? What do they want?" Lyra shook her head quickly. "Not want. Destroy." The ship trembled again, this time followed by a deep boom. The air itself seemed to twist from the impact. Daniel's heart pounded as he realized they were under attack in the sky, far above Earth. The mother turned her burning gaze on Daniel. Even in the chaos, her presence froze him. She stepped close, speaking in her alien tongue, her voice sharp and commanding. Lyra translated with shaking lips. She said, "This is war. Her clan broken. Enemies chase long time. You," she hesitated, "you part now." Daniel's chest tightened. War? This wasn't just some strange marriage law anymore. This was bigger. Much bigger. Before he could argue, the chamber doors blew open. Smoke and light burst inside. Alien soldiers rushed in. But these were different. Taller, armored in jagged red plating instead of smooth silver. Their weapons burned with crimson light. The invaders. Daniel's breath caught as the room exploded into battle. The mothers, soldiers raised their glowing spears, clashing against the red-armored warriors. Sparks lit the chamber as blades of pure energy smashed together. The sound was deafening. One of the red soldiers broke through the line and charged toward Daniel. He froze. The weapon crackled, aiming for his chest, but Lyra moved first. With surprising speed, she pulled him down just as the weapon swung past. The blade of light cut through the air where his head had been a heartbeat earlier. Daniel gasped, his heart thundering. Lyra's grip was strong, unshaken. "Stay close," she whispered. The mother roared, her voice full of power. She leapt forward, no weapon in her hand, only raw strength. Her black armor glowed with blue fire as she struck one of the red soldiers, sending him crashing across the chamber. She fought like no human could, each movement sharp, perfect, and brutal. Daniel couldn't look away. This wasn't just a mother protecting her child. This was a warrior queen. But the red soldiers kept coming. The silver-armored guards fought hard, but they were being pushed back. The chamber filled with smoke, sparks, and the stench of burning metal. Daniel's mind raced. He was useless here, just a human caught in the middle of a war. He had no weapon, no training. He was a target, nothing more. Then he saw it. One of the fallen silver soldiers lay nearby, his weapon still glowing faintly. It was long and sharp, like a spear of light and metal. Daniel's eyes locked on it. His body moved before his mind could argue. He dove for the weapon, fingers closing around the cold metal. The instant he touched it, the spear came alive, humming with energy. Blue. Light surged along its edge. Another red soldier spotted him, turning fast. The weapon pointed at Daniel, glowing with deadly fire. Daniel's grip tightened. Fear burned in his chest, but something stronger rose beneath it. He wasn't going to die here, not without a fight. With a shout, he swung the glowing spear. The weapon hummed, cutting through the air with shocking power. The red soldier blocked, sparks flying, but Daniel pushed with everything he had. The clash rattled his bones, but the soldier stumbled back. For a moment, silence filled his head. He had fought an alien soldier and survived. The mother's silver eyes snapped toward him. She had seen, and for the first time her face shifted, not cold, not cruel, but surprised. Almost impressed, the battle raged on. Daniel fought clumsily, every move fueled by fear and desperation. But the spear responded to him, glowing brighter each time he struck. It was like the weapon itself wanted him to fight. Beside him, Lyra stayed close, guiding him when he faltered, pulling him out of danger when attacks came too fast. She never let go of him, not once. Finally, the mother gave a command. The surviving silver soldiers pressed forward, forcing the red invaders back through the chamber doors. Another blast shook the ship, but the enemy was retreating, for now. Chopri, door sealed shut with a heavy crash. Silence fell, broken only by the sound of Daniel's ragged breathing. His arms shook, his chest heaving, the glowing spear still trembling in his hands. The mother stepped toward him, her gaze sharp. She spoke slowly, each word heavy. Lyra translated softly. She say, "You fight like one of us." She say, "Maybe you belong." Daniel's throat went dry. Belong? No. He didn't belong here. He was human, from a quiet town on Earth, not part of this war. And yet, he couldn't deny what just happened. He had fought. He had survived. The mother's voice grew colder, final. Lyra's translation made his blood freeze. She say, "You have no way back. You bonded. You fight, or Earth dies." Daniel stared at the weapon in his hands. The hum of its energy matched the pounding of his heart. He wanted to scream, to deny it, but deep down he knew the truth. The hidden war was now his war. The silence after the battle was worse than the noise. Smoke drifted through the chamber. The floor was littered with broken weapons and glowing scraps of alien armor. Daniel's chest rose and fell in sharp breaths, the blue spear still trembling in his hands. His arms ached, his body felt heavy, but his mind was alive with one thought. He had survived. But survival was not enough. The alien mother stood tall at the center of the chamber. Her black armor was cracked in places, faint blue light leaking from it like blood. Her sharp eyes locked on Daniel, cold and unreadable. Her soldiers waited in silence. No one moved until she gave a command. Finally, her voice cut through the smoke, low, powerful final. Lyra stepped close, her trembling voice carrying the translation. She say, "You hold weapon now. You spill blood. No step back. You must prove loyalty." Daniel's heart sank. Prove loyalty? He wanted to shout that he didn't belong here, that he was just a man from Earth who had made one small mistake giving food to a stranger. But those words would mean nothing to her. The mother lifted her hand. The soldiers parted, revealing 2 prisoners dragged into the chamber. They wore the jagged red armor of the enemy, their helmets cracked, their bodies bound in glowing chains. Their eyes burned with hate. The mother spoke again, sharp and clear. Lyra's voice broke as she translated. She say, "Kill one, show you ours." Daniel's stomach twisted. "What? No, I can't." Lyra grabbed his arm, her voice urgent, desperate. "Daniel, listen. She test you. If no do, she think you weak. Weak means danger. Not only you Earth too." The soldiers tightened their circle, their weapons humming. The prisoners snarled, their voices guttural and strange. Daniel stared at them, his hands shaking around the glowing spear. He had never killed before, not even in self-defense. The idea made his chest tighten, his breath catch. The mother's silver eyes pierced him like knives. She waited. Time slowed. Daniel looked at Lyra. She was watching him, her silver eyes soft but filled with fear. Not fear of him, but fear for him. He swallowed hard. His voice shook. There has to be another way. The mother spoke again, colder than before. Lyra translated with trembling lips. She say, "No other way. Bond means fight. Fight means blood. Blood means loyalty." The chamber grew darker, the smoke thick. Daniel's heart pounded in his ears. He stepped forward slowly, the spear humming in his grip. The prisoners glared at him, their eyes burning like fire. He raised the weapon, but stopped. His voice was low, hoarse. "I won't kill for nothing." For a moment, silence fell. The soldiers shifted, ready to strike him down. But before they could move, the mother raised her hand. Her eyes narrowed, studying him like a puzzle. She spoke slowly this time, almost curious. Lyra listened, then translated with wide eyes. She say, "Then you choose harder way. If you no kill prisoner, you fight him, win or die." Daniel's blood ran cold. Fight? Against one of them? Before he could answer, the chains on one prisoner released. The red-armored warrior growled, standing tall and cracking his neck. He towered over Daniel, his jagged weapon glowing with crimson fire. Daniel's grip tightened on the spear. His knees shook. He wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. The circle of soldiers closed around them. There would be no escape. The mother gave a single word, sharp and final. The fight began. The enemy charged with terrifying speed. Daniel barely had time to block as the red blade crashed against his spear, sending shock through his arms. Sparks lit the air. The sound was like thunder. Daniel stumbled back, his breath ragged. The enemy struck again, harder. Daniel blocked, but his arms screamed with pain. He was slower, weaker, human. The circle of soldiers watched in silence. The mother's cold eyes never blinked. Daniel's mind screamed, "You can't win." But deep inside, another voice pushed back, "Survive." He ducked under a swing, rolling to the side. The spear hummed, guiding his hands. He struck back clumsily, barely scraping the enemy's armor. But the glow of his weapon flared brighter, like it had recognized his will to fight. The enemy roared and charged again. This time, Daniel braced himself. When the red blade came down, he twisted and pushed with all his strength. The clash shook his bones, but the enemy stumbled just enough. Daniel struck low, sweeping the spear against the alien's legs. The warrior crashed to the ground with a metallic roar. The circle erupted in sound, soldiers pounding their weapons against the floor. Daniel stood over the fallen enemy, the spear glowing bright in his grip. His chest heaved, his body shaking, but his eyes locked on the prisoner. The mother raised her hand, stopping the noise. Her voice was sharp but softer than before. Lyra translated, her lips trembling. She say, "You no weak. You fight. You live." She say, "You pass test. For now." Daniel dropped the spear slightly, his body trembling from exhaustion. Relief washed over him, but it was thin, fragile. He knew this was only the beginning. The mother turned, her black armor glowing faintly. Her final words chilled him to the bone. She say, "This loyalty not finish, many tests come, each harder, each darker, until you not only bond but become one of us." Daniel's throat went dry. He glanced at Lyra. She was staring at him with wide eyes, her lips pressed tight. He didn't know if he had passed a test, or just stepped deeper into a trap he could never escape. The stars burned outside the ship's wide window, but Daniel's eyes stayed fixed on Earth. His home floated far below, a blue and green jewel wrapped in thin white clouds. Beautiful. Fragile. He pressed a hand against the glass, his chest heavy. Somewhere down there were his family, his neighbors, his quiet town. They had no idea what was happening above them, that alien warships circled like vultures, that his choices could decide their fate. Behind him, the hum of alien voices filled the command hall. Soldiers worked at glowing panels. Strange symbols flowed across the walls, alive and shifting. Every sound, every movement reminded Daniel he didn't belong here. And yet, the mother's words echoed in his head. "You fight, or Earth dies." Lyra stood beside him, her silver eyes watching the planet. "Too." Her voice was soft. "Beautiful," she whispered. Daniel turned. "You've never been down there, have you?" She shook her head slowly. "No, always. Ship. Always war." Her voice faltered, almost breaking. "I dream of grass, of sun, of quiet." Her words cut deep. Daniel thought of simple mornings back home. Sunlight in the kitchen, the sound of birds, the smell of fresh bread. Things Lyra had never known. But before he could answer, alarms flared through the hall. Red lights flashed. The soldiers stiffened, their armor glowing brighter. Daniel's stomach twisted. What now? A soldier barked something sharp. The mother appeared at the center of the hall, her black armor shining with cold light. She raised her hand, and the walls transformed. The glass darkened, then shifted to show the sky outside. Daniel froze. An entire fleet was coming. Dozens of red-armored ships slipped from the shadows of space, their jagged shapes lit by fire and metal. They moved like predators, surrounding the mother's vessel. The mother's voice was calm but heavy with power. Lyra translated quickly, her words trembling. She say, "They come for her, for us, but they also see Earth. If fight here, planet burn." Daniel's heart pounded. Earth caught between them. His people didn't even know. They had no defense, no chance. The mother turned her eyes on him, sharp as knives. She spoke again, slower this time. Lyra swallowed hard, translating. She say, "You must choose. Bond with us, fight as one, or break bond. If break, war, fall on your world." Daniel stepped back. "That's not a choice. That's a threat." Lyra touched his arm. "Daniel, she not lie. Enemies see you. They know human man bond with me. They think Earth shield for us. If you walk away, they burn shield. They burn your home." Daniel's head spun. His home, his world, used like bait in a war he never asked for. He clenched his fists. "Why me? Why is this my responsibility?" Lyra's silver eyes met his. She hesitated, then spoke softly. "Because I ask." Daniel blinked. "What?" Her voice shook. "First night, when lost, hungry, I call for you. I tell mother, I want you, not only law, my heart, I feel safe with you, so she demand bond. Not only culture, but me. The air left his chest. The truth hit harder than any weapon. She had chosen him, not out of duty, but out of trust, out of something deeper. He stared at her. She was trembling, her pale skin glowing faintly in the red light. Yet she looked at him with hope, like he was the only solid ground in a collapsing world. The mother's voice cut through again, colder now. Lyra translated, her eyes never leaving his. She say, decide now. Bond or break. If bond, you lead beside her daughter. If break, you bring death to Earth. The hall was silent. Soldiers waited. The ships outside circled like wolves. Daniel's heart hammered in his chest. Bonding meant giving up his old life, becoming part of this alien clan, a husband in name and law. Breaking meant doom for everyone he loved. It was no choice at all. His throat was dry, but his voice was steady. If I bond, Earth is safe? Lyra nodded slowly. Yes, she promised, no attack, Earth Lev. Daniel closed his eyes. His quiet life, his freedom, his dreams, all gone. But Earth, his family, his people, they would survive. He opened his eyes, staring at the mother. Then I'll do it. The mother's silver gaze burned into him. She raised her hand, and the hall lit up with blue fire. The soldiers struck their weapons against the ground, the sound echoing like thunder. Symbols rose in the air around Daniel and Lyra, glowing brighter with every heartbeat. The bond ritual had begun again, but this time he did not resist. The energy wrapped around him hot and cold at once, pressing into his skin, into his blood. He felt it sink deeper, like invisible chains locking onto his soul. His chest burned, but his body stood firm. When the light faded, silence filled the hall. The mother's voice rang out, sharp and final. Lyra translated softly, her voice almost trembling. She say, now you are blood, husband, warrior, part of war. Daniel looked back at Earth hanging in the dark sky. His home was safe for now, but the cost was heavy. He was no longer only human. He was theirs, and outside the enemy fleet closed in, ready to test just how strong his choice truly was. The stars shook with war. Daniel stood on the alien ship's command bridge, the blue, bond mark still glowing faintly across his arms. Outside the wide glass wall, the enemy fleet spread across the sky, dozens of jagged ships, their red fire burning like angry suns. Earth hung below, fragile and unaware, a single spark of life. Between two alien armies, the mother raised her hand. Her black armor blazed with blue veins of light. Her soldiers slammed their weapons against the ground, ready for battle. Lyra stood close to Daniel, her silver eyes locked on his. She looked afraid, but also proud. The mother spoke, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. Lyra whispered the translation. She say, now you are blood. You lead beside us. Show enemy Earth not weak. Daniel's chest tightened. Him. Lead. He was only a man, a stranger caught in a war he never wanted. But the bond pulsed in his veins, heavy and alive. It connected. Him to Lyra, to her mother, to the entire ship. He could feel their strength, and their eyes on him. The enemy ships moved. Red lights flared, and the silence of space shattered into fire. The first blasts struck. Blue shields around the mother's ship rippled, bending under the attack. Soldiers shouted in their alien tongue. Alarms screamed. The battle had begun. The mother barked orders, her sharp voice unshaken. Her soldiers moved with perfect speed, returning fire. Streams of blue energy tore across the dark, crashing against the red fleet. Explosions lit the stars. Daniel's heart pounded as he watched. He wanted to stay back, to let them fight. But the bond pulled at him, demanded he act. Images flashed in his mind, panels, controls, strategies he shouldn't know. Somehow he understood the ship. The bond was teaching him. Lyra grabbed his arm. "You feel it?" she whispered. Daniel nodded slowly. "Yeah. I think I know what to do." She pressed his hand against the glowing panel before them. "Then, fight with us." The moment his hand touched the surface, light exploded across the screen. The ship responded to him, as if it had been waiting. Energy surged through the vessel, sharper, faster. The mother's silver eyes flicked toward him, and for the first time Daniel thought he saw respect. Enemy fire rained down, but Daniel raised his other hand. The ship's shields flared brighter, absorbing the blasts. He could feel the pressure, the weight of every strike like fists slamming into his chest, but he held on. The mother gave another command. Lyra translated quickly, her voice tight. She say, "Strike now, break them or earth burn." Daniel's pulse hammered. He focused, moving his hand across the panel. The ship's weapons came, alive, glowing brighter than ever before. Blue fire erupted, spearing through the dark. The nearest enemy ship exploded, breaking apart in a storm of metal and flame. The soldiers roared, but more enemies pressed in. Red ships swarmed like wolves, their fire tearing across the shields. The mother's ship groaned under the strain. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Daniel gritted his teeth. His body shook, but he refused to let go. If he failed now, Earth would be nothing but ashes. The bond pulsed hotter, brighter. He felt Lyra's hand slip into his, her cold fingers grounding him. Their bond tightened. Together their thoughts merged, sharper, clearer. He wasn't alone anymore. Suddenly he saw it. The enemy's weakness. Their fleet moved in tight formation, protecting a single massive ship at the center. That was their leader, their heart. If it fell, the others would break. Daniel looked at the mother. "Tell her we hit the center ship." Lyra shouted the words. The mother's sharp eyes flashed. Then she gave the order. The ship surged forward, breaking through enemy fire. Blue flames lit the stars as Daniel unleashed everything. The central red ship shuddered under the impact. Its shields cracked. Explosions tore across its hull. The enemy fleet faltered, their formation breaking. The mother's soldiers cheered, their weapons striking the floor like drums. The tide was turning, but victory came with cost. The mother's ship groaned, smoke pouring from the walls. Shields flickered, nearly gone. If the enemy regrouped, they would all die. The mother turned to Daniel, her voice calm but heavy. Lyra translated with trembling lips. She say, "Last strike must be yours, husband of two worlds. Only you can end this." Daniel's chest ached. He looked at Earth below, safe for now. He looked at Lyra, her silver eyes filled with trust. And he looked at the mother, a warrior who had tested him again and again, yet now placed everything in his hands. He pressed both hands to the panel. The bond roared to life, brighter than ever. The ship screamed forward, energy flooding its weapons. The final blast tore through the dark, striking the central red ship. Light filled the stars. When the fire cleared, the enemy flagship was gone. The rest of the red fleet broke apart, fleeing into the black. Silence returned to space. The battle was over. Daniel fell to his knees, exhausted. The bond's glow dimmed, but it remained in his blood, in his bones. He was no longer only human. He was something in between. The mother stepped forward. Her voice rang out across the hall, sharp and final. Lyra's translation was soft but clear. She say, "You are son-in-law now. Husband. Warrior. Bridge of two worlds." Daniel stared at Earth, his heart heavy but steady. His old life was gone forever. But his choice had saved his people and bound him to another. Lyra knelt beside him, her hand slipping into his. Together they looked out at the stars, not as strangers but as something new. The war was not truly over. Peace was uneasy, fragile. But for now, Earth lived. And Daniel, once only a man from a quiet town, was now the husband of two worlds.